We good?
We good. Want to open
I will.
the meeting?
All right, I'll open up this public meeting for the planning board for the town of Maynard. It is Tuesday, May 10th, 2022, and the time is 7:06 p.m. And we're hosting this meeting as a hybrid meeting, so it's in person or virtually through the Zoom call. And we have 3 items for tonight, and we'll start with item number 2, the public hearing for. So I'm usually, oh, here it is, for building R7 at 3 Digital Way at the Maynard Crossing project. And tonight we have, I believe, Ethan Wishnick. Did I pronounce that correctly, Ethan?
Yep, that's good.
Great, thanks, Ethan. Thanks for joining us. Julia or Bill, would you like to give us a briefing on this?
Yeah, I think we also have a few more representatives from the company if you want to make yourself known.
Co-owner Heidi Schofield, and we have several others up there. Ethan?
Yeah, so it's myself and Heidi, my partner. We have our general contractor, Michael Cuniff, on the phone. Also, Kai Peters, who helped prepare the permit documentation, is on the phone as well. And then I believe we have Jim from Capital Group as the property manager as well.
Thanks, Ethan. Sorry,
Sure.
can I get your name?
Heidi?
Heidi, thanks, Heidi. Thanks for joining us.
Okay.
So I like to start with the end of the staff report so we understand what we're working towards tonight. And there are 2 action items here listed. First is that the board determined that the request meets the criteria for the special permit as described in section 10.4. And this is similar to what we did 2 weeks ago. And the second action item is of the board to determine issuance of a special permit to allow a fast food restaurant at Maynard Crossing, and specifically for this building, number R7. And the reason, my understanding, Bill and Julia, for that is that it's the second one is part of the development agreement where we need to approve fast food businesses.
It's part of the zoning bylaws, it's incorporated, so the NBOD does require special permits for fast food. There was a question about, what constitutes fast food, but yeah, so it's just, that's the only way, just to have a review, and the development agreement we're talking about is a little different with this.
Okay.
Blah, blah.
Thanks, Bill. The scope of our review, should it cover just the interior of the building, or should it also cover the exterior portions of the building?
So it will cover, I mean, the special permit is to allow the use. The interior is out of our purview, correct?
We're looking at the use.
Just the use.
Yes.
And then, and obviously the outside has already been determined by our work with 129 Parker. So, and as well, the sign is also has been determined through there's the separate signage special permit that is hopefully going to go through soon. So that's probably where they're going to get their sign for that. So it's really just the use that we need to permit.
Thanks. I'm going to turn it over to the applicants, Ethan or yourself, whoever wants to present.
Pete?
Go ahead, Heidi.
Well, we thank you for having, us here tonight. I don't know if any of you have actually tried Jersey Mike's, but it's it really separates itself. And I'm not just saying food quality. We have 2 other locations, and I gotta tell you, Jersey Mike's as a whole, what they do for the community is unbelievable. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the ads on TV where we do the Day of Giving, and every restaurant donates that day's worth of sales. This year we did Special Olympics, and Jersey Mike's raised $20 million for that cause. Yeah, independently, we do a lot of things in town. We do fundraisers and things for the food banks, and we're involved in the towns a great deal. I mean, with the sports, we like to donate to the sporting events and show up and donate food and a variety of things. I have a great bunch of guys that work for me, and that were really involved in the community. It's more than just for myself, and really for my guys, it's more than just, a place to eat. The company as a whole really, it really gives back to people and changes lives. And I've been doing this for 43 years, and I know, I'm from Belmont, Mass, so I know Maynard's not very far from us. It's a great town. And I think we could, really add something to the community. And I hope that,
Hey, it's Ethan. Maybe just to add one thing, one of the reasons we chose to work with Jersey Mike's. So Heidi mentioned that, it's more than just a business. Heidi's my aunt, so it is also a family. And a lot of the folks who we employ, Heidi has helped grow up in their careers over the last 40 years. But I was just gonna say, it is a fast special use permit for fast food. I totally understand the reasoning behind that. One of the reasons we chose Jersey Mike's is that we thought it was by far one of the highest quality foods we could choose that was quick service. Heidi has a background with Five Guys and a number of other franchises, all great food. But we wanted to stick on kind of the highest quality, healthier side of things, which is how we ended up choosing a sandwich shop.
we also pride ourselves over the years. I've also prided on, running very high standard operations, exterior and interior, and food safety is key. So I'm not just saying that. I've been practicing that for 43 years, and it's over 43 years. You've seen everything. So at this point, I really think that we come in with confidence, and I think it'd be a great addition to Maine.
Thanks, Heidi. Thanks, Ethan. Any questions from the board?
I have a question for staff.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't see the staff report, but the development agreement limits the site to 5 restaurants. I assume that this is fine for that. This is probably number 5, right?
That is all you. I do not know
Yeah.
about that.
No, Bill, there's drive-throughs. But we are still under 4 anyway. So
No, there's a limit for restaurants too. There's a limit of 5 for restaurants.
when we are,
I think this would be number 5.
yeah, well, we don't have 5, but I will double check.
Okay.
I thought it was just with drive-throughs, but I could be.
I'll pull it up.
Yeah.
You guys.
But I mean, if we're okay with the number, then that's fine. It's just, it'd be good to see it in the staff report. So we could check that out.
Any other thoughts or comments from the board? I'll take a minute to run through some of the internal reviews. And Julia, could you just help me confirm? It looks like the health agent had no comment.
Yep.
The building commissioner had no comments. The conservation administrator had no comments. The town engineer provided peer review feedback, and which I believe has no outstanding items. The police had no comment, and the fire department had no issue with the project. Did I get that correct?
So I'm just checking on our peer review. There was some questions about the pedestrian ramp and pathway modifications, but those have all been satisfactorily constructed. So those
Yeah.
questions are no longer.
And this is what I saw also confirmed by Wayne, but at the same time, it's not necessarily, it's adjacent, it's peripheral to this hearing, because this hearing is about use, it's not about
Exactly, yeah.
the
it's-
building itself.
Yeah,
So,
it's hard because it falls under, you have a kind of multitude of
Right.
different permits interrelated.
from my understanding, though, there are no accessibility issues, no
Correct.
ADA issues, there's nothing that would prevent access or anything of that nature.
Correct.
I have one question. What are the proposed hours of operation?
10 a.m. to 9 p.m., 7 days a week.
And I assume that falls within the hours of operation available for the site itself?
Correct.
Thank you.
Yes, there are other operations that are, I think, 10, yeah.
For Bill and Julia, for similar projects, we discussed, as I recall, delivery schedules and things of that nature. Is that pertinent or relevant here?
Yes.
Can you run us through what you think your sort of delivery sort of cadence might be and any other sort of logistics that might impact the area?
I can. We do not receive on the overnight. They do key drop in a lot of stores, but we don't allow that. The deliveries would come most likely after 7 a.m. and no 18-wheelers, so they're smaller trucks. And that would happen 2 times a day. They would come between 7 and 11 or between 2 and 4 in the afternoon, so not during the lunch rushes. Also, Pepsi, the 2 deliveries that we do get are Pepsi and Cisco. So, and Pepsi is once a week in a smaller vehicle, and then the Cisco truck would come twice a week as well.
Will those deliveries be at the back of the building?
Yes, if there's a back entrance, absolutely.
There's nothing in the front.
Either we do have a back entrance, so,
We do have a back
Yeah.
entrance.
so,
You do.
yeah, so we would absolutely have it come through the back.
Thank you.
Are there commonly deliveries on weekends?
Occasionally, there's deliveries on Saturdays. In Massachusetts, most of them get delivered on Wednesdays and Saturdays, but that could be adjusted to whatever, works with the town. Whatever you say, then we can make that happen.
I think we've agreed to those types of conditions with the property group. And I would say as long as we're abiding by that agreement, I think everything's fine.
But I can communicate that to the delivery service.
Yeah, it's just a coordination amongst that because I believe we've covered all that
Okay,
with the operation and maintenance plan with the property development itself. Did I get that right, Bill?
Yes, you're correct.
It's in our lease.
That's what I thought. I didn't want to be that specific, but yes, that's what I assumed. It would be. Are you aware of the build out adding any exterior lights, or was it just the exterior lights that are already built?
Ethan, that'd be you, spirit lights.
The sign is the only thing that will be lit that's new on the exterior. It will just be the standard lights otherwise that are there.
And the sign itself, is that illuminated?
Yes, per the defined limitations in the lease.
Thank you. We, just as a reminder, we've taken special care to take a hard look at all lighting at this site. So if you could be very cognizant of the hours of times the light is on and off relative to the agreement with the development group. I would appreciate that.
Yeah, it'll be on I believe it will be on a timer to be on and off at those times as well. I'll have to double check afterwards, but we will of course make sure that it abides by the hours of the center.
I have a question about the window lights. We have sometimes don't allow open signs and they don't allow the illuminated Jersey Mike signs. I didn't know if that was something that would be an issue. That those are in the windows, they're on timers.
I don't know the answer to that.
That would be up to building commissioner. Yes.
Oh,
Your signage.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
So there's your answer.
Okay, thank you.
And so it looks like that will be, just in case you guys are interested, a tier 3 sign. So one of the smaller signs that will be going up.
If you get your permit tonight and all your other permits that you've asked for, when do you expect to open?
A projected opening date, Ethan?
It'll probably be about somewhere between 10 to 12 weeks from when we start construction. I believe there's a 20-day comment period after today where we can apply for the construction permit. So assuming that we can get everything wrapped up today and get the construction permit in and get both the final approval for this and the construction permit in 20 days. It'll probably be about, again, 10 to 12 weeks after that. I'm trying to do all this math in my head. So that's like maybe 15-ish weeks from now, which puts us pretty close towards September.
Hmm.
I would think, if I had to guess, mid-September is what we're shooting for.
Any other thoughts or comments from the board?
Can I ask, what's the status of the site regarding any pending items? I mean, one thing I'm thinking of is every spring they're supposed to, check the buffer and replace dead trees and things. Has that been done?
I am not sure yet. James, if the property manager's on, perhaps you can speak to that.
Hey, James, thanks for joining us. Did you hear the question and would you like it repeated?
Could you repeat it? I did not hear it.
I was curious about, whether there are any pending items with the site as a whole, but I was thinking in particular about the maintenance of the buffer. And I think it's every spring you have to check to make sure the trees don't die and replace them if they did, things like that. And has that happened already?
Good question. I'm actually the leasing manager, but I can mention it to property manager. I know there we have an on-site person, as you know, there 6 days a week, and property management gets up to at least a couple days a week. So I believe they have, and you're all aware how we are, and if anything does, shrubs or trees die, we do replace them just for the whole aesthetics of the development.
And I also, from a conservation side, we are still working on our conservation restriction and some of the work to take some of those invasives out. So I have to do a comprehensive site visit so I can also make sure that I look from a planning perspective on the interior buffers as well.
Right, I say it's forever buffers, but yeah. Okay.
No, sorry.
Just we've run into problems where it's like, we just forgot and it's July, so we're not gonna do it because it'll die. So wait till next year.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't happen next year, so
Yes, yeah, our planting window is very small
I
here.
would
So,
think any special permits for the site is conditioned on compliance with the operating.
and I think that that's something that we can definitely bring up when the DePietris come back, like the development group comes back, when they are going to be asking some more questions about the signage. That's probably the next permit that's gonna come up, is the change in signage. And since that's more on that level than like a leasing person who's coming in, I think we can definitely condition that on the DePietris.
It may be helpful to, now that I'm hearing this, it may be helpful to get ahead of it before then, because the planting season is so short.
Of course, yeah, no, for sure. But all I'm saying is that that's something
Yeah.
I can go and check on that in the next week or two.
Yep.
And then I just think it would be, depending on what I find, we can condition that when they bring up their next permit.
So James, if you could pass the word along to your organization that in the past, we've seen that there's been a missed opportunity to take advantage of planting seasons to do what's necessary to maintain compliance with the O&M plan. So that's something that we're going to be taking a look at as a town, just to make sure that we're doing that. Is that okay, James?
That is no problem. I have an ownership meeting, as a matter of fact, this Thursday morning, so I will bring it up at that meeting.
Thanks, appreciate it. All right, I will take public comment on this. Members here, public comment can just raise hands. On Zoom, either use the raise hand feature or come off of mute and just announce that you would like to make a comment. So I'll start in the room here. Is there any public comment in the room here?
Could we also, for anyone speaking, just make sure you state your name and address?
Yeah, I'll take Marie Gunnarsson, please. Hi, Marie. Thanks for joining us.
Hello. I do apologize for not being there. I didn't realize that this was a hybrid meeting. And I also,
Sorry, Marie, can you, just for the record, can you
Oh,
please?
yes. sorry, Marie Gunnarsson, 119 Parker Street, Maynard, Mass.
Thank you, Marie.
So I am the abutter. And just to clarify, when we speak of R7, which building is that? What is that the building with the bank in it? Is that the building with the nail place in it?
It's
Or is it-
Ethan, the public comments directed towards the board, I will call on others if, as necessary, so please be patient.
And I'll share my screen right now, so that way we can all look at the same thing.
All right.
So you can see in this visual,
So Ethan, if you would mind helping us out, this is the building that's connected, this is north of obviously Market Basket.
correct. It's
and north. Yeah, go
it's
ahead.
it's across the entrance road from where the Dunkin' Donuts is, if you're familiar with where the Dunkin' Donuts is.
Yes,
Yeah, I believe that there's an Emerson Hospital on the
got it.
street facing side of that
Yeah.
building.
Okay. At least people don't have to cross the terrible crosswalk there. So am I still on for comments?
Yes, you may continue.
Okay. So it also seems, in addition to apologizing for not being there, I need to apologize for not knowing that this was something that was ongoing with lots of progress and decisions already made. And we're here just as a fait accompli. Because I feel very strongly about this, because when the original plans were put in place, the developers swore up and down that there would be no fast food, that worked against the image and type of environment that he was planning on creating. When the site plan was revised, I couldn't help but notice that there was a site plan revision to include fast food with special permit. In my experience, that special permit is, it's always spoke as, well, the planning board's here, it has to go through our process and protect the town. But like the glaring lighting, the town worked a lot to put in a lighting plan, which was just lifted because, well, we want something different here. And so I feel strongly that, fast food was something that the entire neighborhood was told was not going to be part of the plan for all the reasons of traffic, litter, just the general ambiance. And as an abutter, all these issues affect me directly. And I can tell you that with Dunkin' Donuts and alcohol, the amount of litter definitely has increased. So I understand there's a special permit, but that seems to be just an extra step, and we'll just allow whatever the developer needs. So they've gotten the drive-throughs, they've gotten the lighting, they've gotten and these large garish internally lit signs. I've seen nice establishments for liquor, but we have something that just says wine, spirits, beer, like, I don't know, one of those down and out communities. And the name of the store isn't even there. So the other thing is competing with downtown. Jersey Mike's competes directly with an existing downtown establishment, Subway. Middlesex Banks moved to Downtown Crossing, the paper store. And we have local businesses. I don't know why they didn't pursue like TC Lando's and restored that to meaning. But so in terms, there were several things that I heard mentioned: police, fire. And I attended the FinCom meeting yesterday and inquired, whether costs have increased, because I sit here and listen to the fire, ambulance, and police going by my house to this location at least 4 times, sometimes 5 times a day. The applicant has mentioned they'll use light trucks, but as an abutter, there's quite a bit of heavy trucks, and I swear there must be overloaded trucks because the pounding my house takes from the trucks that have increased. And that doesn't include the traffic. Getting out of Field Street, getting out of my house at night can be impossible. And I understand that the applicant thinks well of their business. They've been successful, but I can tell from personal experience that that I would have hoped for a different organization based on the quality of the locations I've been to in Keene and Marlborough. So I am, and lighting, lighting. The great big pylon that lights up my hallway at night. I no longer have dark. The lights are high enough that they flood my property as much as the property next door. And so, and I know that their lighting would probably face the main traffic aisle and not affect me, but just overall. But I remember the promise of no fast food. And Jersey Mike's isn't the same as McDonald's, but it's still the type of establishment that we weren't going to include. And to be frank, I would hope for a better quality establishment.
Mr. Chair,
I would, Market Basket itself sells the sandwiches and subs, and they're pretty good. So I guess, I put a lot there. It's not easy. It's sometimes convenient to walk to 110 Grill or something, but the impact of this has definitely changed my life. And adding, more traffic. I mean, for a fast food establishment, it's not something that I'm looking forward to.
Okay, thank you, Marie, for your comments. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry you're comparing those things. I was taking notes on 2 things that I can bring out of your thoughts that are applicable to this particular applicant. The first is lighting. So can I just, for the record again, Heidi and Ethan, are you adding any additional lighting to this establishment?
Is your question about interior or exterior? Or both?
Exterior only.
Exterior? No additional exterior lighting other than the sign, which will be lit to the specifications per the lease in the property, which should be consistent with the other signs that are there.
And as I recall, Bill Nemser, the one sign would have to go through the building commissioner for that?
Any signages with the exception of the main sign at the very front.
Okay, so
I would like to also clear up one.
sure, 1 second though. And then the second is Marie brought up fast food so Bill and Julia, fast food is allowed under this, the agreement?
Yes, there's in the original memorandum of agreement since 2016, it's been called out. Fast food has been in there. There are, as it's interesting, because I just looked up what Bill had reference to. But most importantly, there's a distinction between fast food and full service restaurants. In either way, the applicant in the project is consistent with the NBOD and the memorandum of agreement. I don't want to get any misunderstanding about that.
And to be honest, I was surprised that this, that Jersey Mike's was being called fast food. Is that
Yeah.
just because it's really hard to determine another name for it because of our zoning regs?
Yes, so,
Okay.
under our zoning regulations, fast food is considered, it's based on utensil and sit-down service. So they have to be using, utensils and reusable materials, I think is the terminology. I can pull that up. But that's why they fell. And we actually had internal conversations with Jersey Mike's about this, this designation. And because in other towns, you aren't considered fast food. However, here, since we do have a limited definitions around restaurants, that's why they.
Yeah, I didn't quite, yeah, when I heard that this was for a fast food establishment, when I think of Jersey Mike's, I don't think fast food, but that's okay. We'll just roll with it.
Yes, yeah, so it's, one of those things that where our hands are kind of tied
Yeah.
with the zoning, and maybe that's something that we can look into in the future. Maybe breaking down restaurants a little bit more than they are.
In this, just to kind of close the look of this, the restrictions for fast food are called out by names. It was what in the agreement, which was, but it also, there is a limit, as Bill said, there's 5 full service restaurants. But fast food is a different category as well, but we're not there yet.
I would be cautious about that statement, because if that were true, then you were saying that this site could have unlimited fast food restaurants. I don't believe that's even close to being true.
Except for
I
the
can-
ones that are called out.
I can back up the statement of the abutter about the original conversations in regard to there being no fast food restaurants on this property.
Hmm.
Although I do acknowledge that when the selectmen finally wrote it, they only said, McDonald's, Burger King, KFC, Wendy's, Taco Bell, Chick-fil-A, Arby's, or Sonic. But no way in hell was the intent for there to be unlimited fast food restaurants.
No, I don't disagree. I'm reading what it says in here, and there's no way at all that there's not supposed to be fast food at all.
That's true,
Right.
but
And
this is a full-service restaurant.
is
in
regard
regard.
to
No.
service business. No. this is
Oh, it
not.
absolutely is in
No,
regard. to-
no, the MBOD calls it out. And that was the question. And
That
so
was Rick's
Right.
call.
that was Rick's. It calls, that has its own definitions and it makes a difference between fast food and a restaurant, a full service restaurant.
So for
We
example,
did
Panera,
Wrestle with that. a
in,
bit.
in our definition, Panera would not be a fast food restaurant because they serve with real utensils and reusable materials. That's, so it's, yes, it's very antiquated, but
So most pizza shops would be considered fast food then?
correct.
So we have to parse this out.
Yeah.
There was the initial agreement for the initial development agreement that had an intention when they used the word fast food, but that's very separate from a conversation about a designation of fast food or not as it applies to the zoning bylaws. And from what I'm hearing is that the Jersey Mike's is being called fast food because it's really the only designation that fits the closest in this sense.
So can I read out our
Sure.
definition of fast food? So food is fast food. Food is which is a primarily intended for immediate consumption rather than for use as an ingredient in or component of meal. B, available upon short waiting time. And C, packaged or presented in such a manner that can be readily eaten outside of the premises where it is sold.
Can you read the definition of full service restaurant?
Give me a second.
It's on 107.
When you go to find things, then,
So well, Julie's looking that up for the
oh, here it is.
Dunkin' Donuts is not a fast food. It is specifically called out by name.
Yeah,
in the
so,
development agreement.
so restaurants, the definition of restaurant.
No, I'm asking the definition of full service restaurant.
So we don't have full service.
Okay, that's my point. The development agreement references a full service restaurant, specifically including a Dunkin' Donuts by which the food is secondary. And also Ben and Jerry's, things like that. So my only point was that restaurants like this are perfectly fine, but this is number 5, so they can't have any more.
So it
That's
says,
my only point. I'm not arguing about the
Okay.
definition of fast food here.
it says in here, I'll just read the definition of restaurant, so we're all on the same page. An establishment where the principal business is the sale of food and beverages within the structure, including but not limited to the characteristics of patrons dining at tables or in booths, being waited on by staff, and with food and beverages being primarily served in non-disposable containers, except for takeout items which are expressly allowed. For the purposes of the MBOD, a restaurant is distinguished from a fast food restaurant. The definitions of fast food and fast food restaurant are found in section 11.
So do you still think that this is a sit-down restaurant?
Oh, I have no opinion whatsoever on that. I'm just saying that this meets the definition in the development agreement of full service restaurants, of which there can only be up to 5.
What's the
And this
definition?
is fine.
What's the definition of full-service restaurant?
Well, there is no definition. There's a reference to there shall be no more than a total of 5 full-service restaurants on the property, which exclude establishments whose primary menu items are coffee or similar beverages and related baking goods such as Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks.
I think this is something that we should work with Capital Group on and get ahead of, so that we have a consensus of understanding.
Mhm.
So that we don't have an applicant come in 6 months or a year from now and then have the discussion again. Right, so let's, if Bill and Julia, if we could work this out with Capital Group, just to make sure that we have an understanding, if there's any conflicts of understanding, that we just discuss it and figure it out ahead of time.
Yep, and so, again, like it says in this definition, fast food restaurant is in full service, or in this case, the word restaurant and fast food restaurant are separate definitions. So,
if I may, Heidi and Ethan, it sounds like you both qualify as fast food and full service in our town, so congratulations. Are there other comments from the board?
We'll make sure we straighten that out for the board and figure out what the building commissioners.
Right.
But I understand what Bill's.
Yep.
It's not the building commissioner's definition. This isn't the development agreement. This is the select board's definition.
So the select board said that literally anything other than McDonald's, those ones that they were called out, literally anything other than that is called a sit-down restaurant.
No, they didn't do that at all.
Well, then then how are we calling them?
No, I'm just saying the development agreement allows up to 5 restaurants to provide full service, whatever the hell that means. in the development agreement.
Right.
And this is fine. They're number 5. Cool, done. And, oh, by the way, a full service restaurant like Burger King and McDonald's isn't allowed either. It's gonna do it, just call it by name. 2 different sections.
They're calling McDonald's a full-service restaurant?
Well, they're saying McDonald's is not allowed. Burger King is not allowed. KFC is not allowed.
Limited service restaurant.
so,
But
For limited service.
yeah, so I think moving forward, we see that we have a gap in definitions. And I think that we should, this opens up a kind of a can of worms of definitions, but maybe we should look into revising
Yeah.
full service, limited service, and that way we have a little bit more control. So people who come in where,
keep in mind, this is a phrase in a development agreement written some years ago.
yes,
And it has nothing to do with building commissioner's interpretation. It has to do with board of selectmen's interpretation, because they are the signatory. It's their agreement,
Correct,
their wording.
correct.
Yeah, and Julie didn't say building commissioner, so we're gonna blame Bill for saying.
Oh, yeah. I think I understand those points. And it's something that we have to clear up. What I meant is that we discussed with the building commissioner, so everybody's on the same page about this. I don't disagree with your interpretation. I disagree only that I just didn't want it to go out that there was this board is acting inappropriately by allowing fast food restaurants.
And so to clarify, what I see about this applicant is that it is aligned with the developing agreement. And that it's allowed, the use is allowed by the town itself. Obviously, we have to look at the special permit criteria, make our determination. And that there's just this blanket of the development agreement that has its own particular definition that ties back to the initial intention that was initiated by the select board at that time. So it's something that part we need to work out, but regarding this particular applicant, nothing I've heard prevents them from being approved necessarily from that standpoint.
Agreed. Well, and we do have James, leasing agent on, so I mean, right now, James, I would assume that he's heard this conversation. And will-
Yeah, so James, you've heard the conversation. Bill and Julia and the town will reach out to see if there's a way to just get this conversation started to make sure we have a joint understanding of what these definitions mean.
I agree. It should be clarified. We all have different opinions of fast food, full service, and I think it does need to be cleared up.
Any more comments from the board? Yes.
Just briefly, I wanted to just say, it sounds like the applicants have a good understanding of what your hours and deliveries and everything are going to be. I want to make sure that James and Capital Group take it upon themselves to make it very clear that we spent a lot of time on the site-specific information for, all the different areas of the development with specific delivery times, and that is what keeps the neighbors happy. So as long as that is in your project, then I think that's great.
We're very aware of the curb appeal and, we know our neighbors and we know, like trucks, we don't want them coming at 5, 6 in the morning, waking people up. I'm very aware of that throughout the years and,
Great.
we will, do our best to minimize any issues that come up.
Excellent.
At this time, Heidi or Ethan, is there any other information you'd like to provide before I close the hearing?
Oh, okay. Is there any more public comment?
I took public comments.
Okay.
Is there room for an additional comment?
Marie, if you can make it applicable to the applicant and Jersey Mike specifically itself and not
Yes,
for all site conditions, I will take your comment.
okay. So my understanding from reading understanding, Jersey Mike's, you walk in, order at the counter, they hand you a sandwich, it's all wrapped up. That's, to me, does not seem like full service. That seems to qualify as fast food. Full service to me would be sit down menu service at a table, or even possibly going up and ordering it and having it delivered to your table and having somebody service. So I think it does qualify as fast food. The one thing that was mentioned was the number of restaurants, and I don't know if there's anybody there, but at one time they'd spoken about an Asian restaurant and there's a Mexican restaurant. So I'm not sure if those are still in the plans and are counted. So when you have that conversation,
Okay,
that was my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie.
And Chris, if I could just remind the applicant that the operating agreement does not allow deliveries in this area.
It does not, okay, well, we can make
Monday
that
through Friday, 7 to 7.
perfect, we can make that happen. Definitely.
Okay, hearing no more comment from the board, any additional information from the applicant at this time?
Nope, not for me.
Julia, anything else?
No, my question was just going to be, if it's already in the agreement, then we don't have to put that into our special conditions, correct? Right.
That's my understanding. About delivery times, you mean specifically?
Yeah,
Yes, I think I feel comfortable with what we worked out with the developer for the entire project.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Second,
Thanks, Jim. All in favor by hand? 5-0 in favor of closing the hearing. All right, we have two assignments. The first is to determine if the request meets the criteria for the special permit as described in 10.4, zoning bylaw, which is listed above in the staff report. This is whether it meets the considerations for social, economic, and community needs, traffic and flow, adequacy of utilities, neighborhood character. Any thoughts from the board on meeting these criteria? Those considerations?
I got a little problem with this basically just cannibalizing downtown and putting subway out of its misery. Trying to weigh the adverse effects, but not outweighing the beneficial.
And you,
I mean, at best, it's a wash.
and so I understand the your thought on this is number one.
Well, my thought is the definition, the opening paragraph shall be granted only upon determination that the adverse impacts do not outweigh the beneficial. And yes, of the considerations, maybe 1 and 6 that would fall under, but I don't know, it's not the greatest thing for the town. It's not the worst thing. It's not the worst.
Well, I don't know. I can't say that we should be choosing businesses. I mean, we live in a free market, and if it's allowed to go in here, yes, there should be consideration, but I'm not going to start considering another specific business elsewhere in town. That's just not. I don't even like capitalism, but here we are. So, that's.
But I know I'm just considering the balance between the downtown and this
I-
strip mall here.
I certainly am too, but I also feel like,
I am also very concerned about that too, Bill. The challenge I have is that the developing agreement allows for these uses already, so what type of, I would try to think of what type of other restaurant or establishment would be better than this, what's been proposed.
well, and the other thing
So,
is,
sorry, so when I look at it like that from a relative standpoint, I can't,
Yeah, no, it's hard.
yeah, I mean, I totally agree,
I do too.
just,
I just feel like the adverse effects have to be something concrete, not just like people might like it better. And therefore wouldn't be as downtown as much. Like that's a byproduct, that's not a specific adverse effect because the business, smells like Swiss cheese all the time. And therefore, like that's a specific thing. I don't know.
No,
I'm with you.
I'm just
I'm-
going back to the original discussion when the whole thing was put together. The intent was not to have any adverse impact on the town.
No.
And that was the commitment.
Yes.
But that's not what made it into legally.
any other thoughts or comments from the board? Besides the consideration that was just discussed, I see that traffic flow and safety meets this criteria. Adequacy of public utilities meets this criteria. Neighborhood character and social structures, well, it aligns with the criteria of the development itself. Impacts on the natural environment are minimal. Potential fiscal impacts are improved. And if there's no additional comments, I'll make a motion, let's see, I'll make a motion to determine that the request and the applicant meets the special permit criteria as described in section 10.4 of the zoning bylaw.
I'll second that.
Thanks, Jim. All in favor? The 4-0-4-1, Bill? Did I get that
I don't
correct?
know,
You want a minute?
I'm just trying to
We'll give you a minute.
read between the lines in the special permit definition.
I have a clarification question for Bill.
Bill, which Bill?
Yeah, Bill.
Can we ask after this, or
It,
is it applicable to this
it is
discussion?
flexible.
Okay.
Just on, do they also need to talk about the MBO criteria?
Yeah, consistency with the MBO criteria would be part of the special permit.
Okay,
So
so
to
that's,
consider-
so that's a part of it.
You should consider the MBO criteria.
Okay,
Well, it doesn't say that in staff report, Bill.
Oh, my goodness. we have done hundreds of these. Yeah.
Um,
No, it should.
I just wanted to clarify.
Can you pull up that criteria?
I can.
Because if we are supposed to.
Oh, so it's
consider
not the criteria, not the consistency
Consistency.
with the concept plan, not the criteria. Criteria is the MBO, the DOD.
Okay, all right.
Right.
So can you bring up the concept plan? Is that available to you?
It's right on one. if you want.
Which,
It's right on the main.
Yes, Bill, give her your hand.
Yeah, Chris, I'll go with yes.
Okay, so before, we're gonna take a step back. If this is something we're supposed to consider, I want to consider it before we vote. Please be patient with us. Heidi.
I'll take. Wow.
on planning?
Yeah, I think it's.
And once you get there, can you also share your screen, Julia?
Yes,
It doesn't have, doesn't have three downloads, but there.
okay.
See resources.
You're just giving Julia fodder to update the website.
Yeah.
Still gonna use this where things are, so,
Oh, down.
Right here?
Projects. programs, sorry, down. There it is. There's concept plan, so you look at it. There it is. Right.
Is that the, is there any way to zoom in?
there is,
That's not the same.
No, you said concept. plan.
Well, you said this is tied to the concept. plan. Right, Bill? No, sir, you said.
Yes, yes.
the only reason I was asking is because in our draft of our decision, we talk about the MBD
Mhm.
criteria. So I just wanted to make sure we didn't.
Right.
That they didn't have to vote.
And what is yellow in the concept plan?
We may need to get it back now.
Yes,
There it is, concept. plan.
Next one's.
next one, okay. It's a little bit easier to say that. Still blurry. I don't know, guys, Bill might be better than listening to me.
Slide down a second.
I'm sorry?
Right here, slide. You can see it's from me. You can see it from you.
No, it's
So can you just point to which building that Jersey Mike's is in? It's that
right
one.
here.
Yep.
This
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, that's perfect.
To
If-
confuse
if it-
everyone.
If it's supposed to be part of our decision-making criteria, I do want to review it. And the question still is pending though. Can we look at the legend to see what yellow means?
Yes.
Thank you.
Is there a legend on the concept plan?
Now.
That I have. I've got it.
Okay.
I think it's, oh, go down a little, please. It's that right at the bottom left corner.
Yeah, I'm not fully sure there
It's
isn't
a
a
retail,
key.
it's a retail category.
Retail.
If you can confirm it's retail, Bill, that's all.
Yeah, I just can't see it.
Red is too. Everything's phases.
Does it
I don't think it's ownership.
I do believe it's phases from my memory.
All right, so total square footage, that didn't have any differentiation. I don't think the color.
I have one with all the circles. Remember how we worked on it?
I do. So,
I don't think that's in here. Before that.
I think in this case, the consistency with the concept plan is irrelevant because they're not talking about expanding or doing anything to the exterior
We're just making sure it's in one of those retail
blocks.
blocks.
Yeah, which it, yeah, so I think,
so we've confirmed that Jersey Mike's, the applicant, will be in one of the current building locations that are already built.
yes,
And there it's allowed by the developer agreement, therefore it's in line with the concept plan.
yes. And that's the special permit criteria under the MBOD allows for this, that's
So we have the motion and it's been seconded and you've had discussion. So I will take a vote one last time. This is to determine if the applicant meets section 10.4 of the zoning bylaws. All in favor? That's 5, Julia, that's 5-0 in favor of the special permit for 10.4. Second motion, I'll make a motion to issue a special permit to allow a fast food restaurant at Maynard Crossing at building R7 at 3 Digital Way. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thanks, Jim.
You might want to qualify a little bit more. It's on 3-8 is the actual unit.
Can you, Ethan, can you confirm that?
I'm sorry, what was that?
what's your address, your legal address?
I believe it's, sorry, I'm looking at one of the documents here.
Yeah, so it's 3 Digital Way, building R7, suite 8, so 3.
3-8.
Yes,
3-8, yeah, R7-3 is what I have.
Okay, so we'll amend the motion to include the words building R7-8 at 3 Digital Way.
No, 3-8.
Sorry,
Okay, sorry, building R7 at 3-8 Digital Way.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. And the reason we want to get that correct is that, it's specific to this particular unit itself. That's the only reason. And not that we think you guys would move suddenly. It's just best practice. So, thank you, Jim. Any discussion on this one of the issuance of special permit for fast food?
Can you remind me, does this apply only to Jersey Mike's?
correct.
So not any fast food can now go there?
No, so
This one
if
is brand new.
Jersey Mike's left and another fast food chain would want to go in, they would still need to get.
So the special permit is tied to the applicant.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion? Was that, that's 5-0? 5-0, all in favor of the motion. Now, Jim, we need to close this hearing, right?
No, you closed the hearing already.
We closed the hearing already, thank you, Jim, right? Okay, thank you, Patty, thank you, Ethan, for coming in.
Thank you very
We're all
much.
set.
All right, thank you.
Thanks
so much.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
just to give you guys an idea of next steps. So we'll write up the decision. Once that gets published, you'll get a notice of decision.
Mhm.
And then there is the 20-day waiting period that you guys
Yes.
are familiar with.
Any questions on that, Heidi? or you?
No, fine.
Nope,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
Minutes? Bill Nemser, I saw an edit by Bill Cranshaw in email.
And it should be included in there. About the parking of employees in the,
I couldn't find that.
lot. Yeah, I watched the tape again. It was, we
No,
talked
no, I
about it.
couldn't find it in the amended minute.
Oh, I saw it.
Oh,
Where'd it go? Talking about parking out back and where the employees can park.
Yes. I saw it. Hang on.
The latest paragraph.
Yeah, then it's not, the word parking is not in, according to my,
I saw it when I read them when they were sent out.
Right, the original word had it, and it referenced that the employees have to park on River Street, or that,
It
that was
said,
not a requirement.
I thought it said rear of building or.
Right, but we didn't say they had to go to River Street.
Yeah, we just, I watched it. What was it? We said is, I asked you about it. I said we could do it and we agreed that, yeah, that would be the criteria, but can't they just park there?
I think that
yeah, it's,
the paragraph got deleted instead of edited.
Oh, change it if you want to edit.
No, you were right.
it got deleted.
Yes,
There's a correction on the.
So instead of editing it, I think it accidentally got deleted.
The motion to adjourn the meeting was a motion to close the meeting.
It wasn't on that original email, so I don't have the original minute, but
Third line up from the bottom.
Yeah,
of the
I'm gonna
back
find
page.
yep, got it. Thank you, Jim.
Find the minutes.
Do we want to table these minutes?
I was just saying, I don't think it's on the, just if you,
You deleted the paragraph,
but which paragraph?
the whole paragraph that
There's,
ended with the reference to River Street.
Mr. Crenshaw asked if employees could park on the property to meet the DOD requirement for the special permit. Mr. Ngar agreed.
Yeah.
And then customer parking on the lot is not feasible to the lack of pedestrian access to the, but that's not on here.
it's no longer.
Got it. Okay, so I got the wrong ones are printed, your old ones are printed.
I was fine.
That's
with-
not true either.
No?
Natalie, could you forward me that email?
Absolutely.
And then I can just edit them as we go.
The other suggested edit I gave them was that in the discussion of hours of operation, that we note that we decided that wasn't needed in the permit, because it's covered by the select.
So let's table these minutes and just get it correct. Is that okay, Julia?
Do you have any other edits that I can?
Yeah, I got one
We're
other
gonna-
one.
Yeah, we will get there. So first, we're gonna table these minutes and get them correct. And just to cover this, I assume, do you have Bill Crenshaw's comment on the initial?
No, so I wasn't on that.
I just
email,
sent it to you.
But Natalie just sent it.
Okay,
So I was gonna pull that up. Thank you.
okay, so that covers that. Jim has a few comments. Go ahead, Jim.
Two corrections that I've seen. On page 4, above the other items in planning update, the board voted unanimously in favor of the motion. That was on the hearing. At that point in time, we should have a motion to close that hearing. It's down at the bottom here underneath the planning update. So that's in the wrong place. So that should go up here to close that hearing that we had. And then at the end here, we should have voted, Natalie made a motion to close the meeting, and I seconded that, and then the board voted unanimously in favor of the motion to close the meeting. Okay, and that it
So I think,
should not say meeting adjourned,
I'm
meeting closed.
I'm with you.
okay, so on
Oh.
page,
I'll show this.
correct.
See, that's what happens when I mess things up by doing it.
So we need a motion to close the hearing.
What?
Right after, so this is the hearing.
Yeah.
Motion to close this hearing. motion to adjourn.
Adjourn the meeting, to close the meeting.
And then Jim makes us get our words correctly every meeting, so I'm aware that you made it sure that it was the motion to close the meeting, not adjourn the meeting.
Almost have to close both of them out.
Close the hearing.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the meeting closed.
Close the meeting.
We don't like to use words adjourn.
Blah, blah, blah.
And Jim, you want to brief us on why we don't use adjourn?
Yes, adjourn means that there are still pending issues that are going to be adjourned to the next meeting or to another meeting. Closing the meeting says the meeting is finished. We did all the stuff on the meeting floor and it's now closed. That's something that's been
So,
done wrong in many, many meetings for years and years and years, but that's the proper way to do it.
Go ahead, yes.
so I'll have you vote on these minutes at the next meeting.
We
Do you
have,
like
we have
after,
two options.
so that way you see the edits?
You can work on them now and we can bring them up on the screen
Okay,
and confirm, or we wait till the next meeting. So, whatever you want.
okay.
Yeah, it was deleted, you're right.
I think at this point, it might be better if we,
Wait.
yeah, and that way I can just get the right.
I'll make a motion to table the minutes until the next meeting.
Okay, I will second that motion. We're gonna table the minutes. Is that okay?
Yes.
All right, all in favor to table the minutes? 5-0.
So Bill, we need a few more edits and I made some notes on the minutes and then we'll look at this again with the old version and make sure that we get.
Perfect.
So. For tonight, we scheduled a discussion for the downtown overlay district. It is it's about 8:15. Does anyone need a break? No. I'd say about a month ago, we had a brief conversation about this and we had a couple of notes for takeaways, as I recall. Is my memory correct? Do you remember this? Yeah.
The gist of it for the downtown overlay district, as I remember, was how we meet the mitigation requirements or the complementing of whatever business is coming in and be consistent with what the town's DPW's current plans were. So ensure that the timing was correct. We didn't do something that still allows up DPW down the line. So we met with DPW and what they had, we were talking about, should we do, Bill asked a good question about, should we have our was the ADA
So the transition. part
Transition
was
plan,
something that
right.
you had brought up.
requirements, and there are, we do a plan that's identified them. In the area where we are talking as a downtown overlay district, DPW had recommended that it would be, rather than having an applicant do it, they would prefer to have funding and set up funds specifically for downtown overlay district improvements. And that they would contribute to, like we did with OLA. And the reason is that, Julie, you spoke to Justin.
Yes, so when we were looking at, when I talked to him about, what are the projects that coming up? He was like, yeah, I don't think it's a good idea to go project based because we have many projects down the line. And that's constantly changing as the needs are changing. And there's also maintenance. And that's something that if we had a downtown improvement fund was the wording that he suggested. Then that money could be put towards both those smaller projects, but also improvements on maintaining what our existing infrastructure. And then when it comes to the ADA transition plan, what I learned is that our current plan is not approved by the state, our transition plan. And I don't know much about that other than that's what I was told.
What is the ADA transition plan?
So I don't know much about that. That's something that Bill Crenshaw brought up, and I asked Justin directly, and that's the answer I got. But so we need to get all of our main issue with ADA is our ramps. And so one ramp costs about $7,500. You can't just do one, you need to do two, you need to have a full, complete, accessible either sidewalk or walkway. So the problem that we run into is, okay, we could do it ramp by ramp, but then, then you start running into try and figure out who gets the first ramp and if it's in front of that building and that business. And so what comes to your lap is how do we figure out the funds number, like that calculation? So it's fair to each individual business coming in, like a contribution, while also making sure that we're getting what we want. So if we did a downtown improvement fund, it would only be for downtown overlay district area. And then, the projects that come up like ADA ramps could be done at that moment, or if it's a smaller business coming in wanting to contribute $500, it can be slowly increment.
Sorry, maybe you said this. Who would decide what order projects get done then?
So the DPW.
Okay.
Yeah, so depending on the funds. However, so our problem right now too, another problem we have is when we go apply for grants, we don't have match funding. So that's a lot of times why we can't get big grants, such as like MassWorks, because we don't have 20% match. So this is another way that we could get another fund for ADA ramps.
Right.
And we had 20% to match, a $500,000 project.
That would be good.
It would be, yeah.
Okay.
And it's different from all the other funds in Chapter 90 and everything that's working around the town, because it would only be for the downtown overlay district.
So this would be funds contributed by an applicant. And as you said, it would be good to have a criteria ahead
Yeah.
of time to determine what that fund structure looks like, right?
Yeah, so I think some of the concerns was, in our last meeting, trying to come up with a ballpark estimate of, okay, you're not going to give bike racks necessarily, so how do we come up with that number? And the applicant was comfortable with the number that we chose, but moving forward, is there a more scientific criteria that we can say, okay, it needs to be a certain percentage of your, put a number on the impact, or what, I don't know how you guys would like to.
We'll just get a Ouija board and we'll figure it out.
Yeah, and I think that's what I just want to make sure that we figure that out because sooner than later, so that we don't have a situation where one business feels
I would say
an
that
adverse impact.
we need to figure that out ahead of time. Because when I look at that, there's a lot of parallels to being able to be fair and equitable with all applicants.
Yeah,
And I think that's incredibly important. And it ties back even to, some of the older sort of decisions from, different levels of Massachusetts courts.
Yeah.
Where towns have gotten in trouble by requiring something from one applicant, but not having the same standard for others. So I think that standard needs to be definitely developed before we can guess what.
Do other towns, to your knowledge, have similar funds, or they already figured this out?
so I am not sure about that. From my past experience in looking into, you know, calculations of funds, I was a lot of times looking at developers and around particularly water and sewer. So what was happening in certain towns I was working in was a developer would come in and they'd say, oh, okay, yeah, sure, you can connect into our sewer, but you have to replace 100 feet. And then the next person would come in, sure, you can connect, but you have to replace 200 feet. And it was, you know, those numbers were kind of like, whatever, sure, that's kind of what we want today. And then looking into how they were going to fix that was they had to replace as much needed sewer based on like CCTV and like calculation, and also how much they were tying in. There was like a calculation that actually happened, so that would happen. But that's my only experience with development, like in lieu of these type of things. Bill, do you have?
No, I think the idea of, we have had a downtown improvement fund in the past. And I think that's a missing piece here. We probably, if we're gonna go this route, we should establish a separate account specifically for this. I would recommend that we do a formula much the way, kind of the same way that we developed a formula for the conservation portion contribution. You know, we had to take it to make sure it's fair, make sure it's equitable, and that we can simplify the process for the board. Right. I mean, we have and listening to, you know, when DPW explained it, totally makes sense.
I get that point for sure, and I think there's also a benefit to applicants here because it provides certainty.
Right.
To them, they know exactly what to expect going into this.
Yes.
So this would be people coming in and no longer saying you're gonna plant or fund 8 trees. It would be, you're gonna pay this much money and it's going to go into a fund that funds trees and ramps and trash cans and, you know, whatever. Okay.
And then
There's a lot of details there to figure out too. I mean, we have to figure out what our scope is involved here for sure.
Right.
and the tree fund still exists, and that's still something that can be used. You know, if we have a project come up and that's what you guys are concerned about, and you really just pay, you know what, we know that we just want this for the trees.
Right.
You can have them put that money into
Okay.
just the tree fund,
Okay.
and then it locks it in.
Let's say it's, you know, more in an area where they have to take down 12 large
Right,
trees.
exactly.
And say you have to pay for the tree fund.
Yes, instead of the downtown.
So Chris, why are we doing this? Because we're trying to define what meets the DOD special permit criteria, or are we doing it because we want impact fees throughout the town, or a complete streets impact fee? What are we talking about?
My initial thought was, how can applicants contribute based on the 2 sets of regulations that we need to look at? And applicants do that in a number of ways. And what I wanted to be was, so in the past, we've been reactive. Applicants come in and we react and see what they can help improve based on impact.
When you're talking the DOD.
DOD only.
DOD special permit criteria.
DOD only. Yes,
So
not the town.
meeting the
Not the town.
significant improvement to the pedestrian experience. You said plant some trees.
That's what we've done in the past,
Okay.
right?
Well, this is like to prevent Olaf from coming in and saying, I'm gonna give you bike racks, and us having to say, well, we don't really need bike racks, which would be instead during the middle of the meeting, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
And then,
But I mean, there's 2 points I want. One is, I think we really need to look at the criteria
Mhm.
because it has not worked well.
Mhm.
So we may be a step ahead of ourselves.
Mhm.
And secondly, the other thing is that, and this makes it super hard, is that, you know, there's some projects that have to meet the DOD criteria just because the DOT criteria is here. They're not taking advantage of the DOD laws. They're doing everything under the base zoning, but this thing overlay says you gotta get that, you gotta meet that anyways. And it would be unfair for those people to make the same contribution of somebody who's coming in, taking advantage of the extra development allowed by the DOD.
I think that's
So that's
completely
tough.
fair.
Yes, good point.
We either figure that out or we. wait.
Why is it unfair?
Because, well, I mean, it's
He's
like.
talking about a hypothetical.
No, but
The
I'm
base,
saying, I
the
don't,
base zoning, it's like, well, the base zoning says I could build 2 stories and I'm done. Oh, by the way, the DOD, since you're in the DOD, it also says it has to improve the pedestrian experience.
yeah, well, that's where they're doing their project. That's just part of it now.
Well, I see there's a difference between, oh, by the way, I'm taking advantage of reduced parking requirements and a change in building height and extra residential
I
units.
mean, that's the horses we've traded in the past.
Yeah.
Because those guys are like, well, they're getting something out of the bylaw. They're getting a financial benefit out of the bylaw. The DOD part of the bylaw.
Yes.
Versus somebody else who's like
Oh,
just dealing
so
with it.
they should, but I mean, I don't think we should be letting the person who's just dealing with it, who would ideally be going under the base zoning, right, just get away with nothing. Personally, I mean, that's the whole point, is that we're improving the downtown overlay, right? Like, that's,
Yeah, but I see,
Well, the idea of an optional overlay is, I don't think is practical in the first place. That was trying to split the baby
right,
and please
It's
everybody.
very unique.
It's dysfunctional from the base and what we're trying to do. Why would you want to spend the time we do creating a very nice, like some cool new projects and then have somebody come in and build something in the base zoning that eroded the spirit of what you're trying to do? Because it doesn't make any sense to me.
I think that they should be allowed, I mean, like, if they want to come in and have basically a by right project, right? But they need to follow all this stuff, well, then at least we get that stuff out of it. I don't know.
I think all these concerns can definitely be worked out, and I can envision in many different ways. So I see paths for having all these considerations. So I think this is a baseline conversation to see if the idea and concept makes sense, and then we have a lot of details to work out. Overall, I like the concept a lot. I like the concept of tying some type of fund that has, where it's more controlled and directed, that can be directed towards need instead of what a planning board happens to decide at that time or what an applicant decides to propose. I feel like there's more control and ambition and direction on that. I just feel like it's a better way to do development. So I like that concept. And I like that it's thought that we can be thoughtful with a priority list of things that are important that tie back to DOD development, complete streets or ADA, whatever we decide is
And that's,
needed.
yeah, so we spoke about that, the name of the fund, because I said, complete streets downtown, add on me, that include complete streets.
Mhm.
And the DPW director's opinion on that was by defining complete streets outright, that limits what it can be used for from a maintenance perspective. So
Totally.
if we have a hazardous curb cut or just a broken stair, would that, then we start like, are we following complete streets versus just an improvement plan?
We want the right amount of restriction on and direction of something like this. Too much restriction makes it
Exactly.
non-usable. Having too little restriction makes it uncontrollable. You can do anything. That's not the point. The point here is to use resources to improve town based on priorities determined by town and staff and boards and everything else. So that's the goal. And I think this seems to have the pieces to do that. I also want, as we work through this conversation and figure out the details, there has to be a mechanism for approving this that's not just DPW approves and chooses. There has to be something that's priority lists that the planning board looks at, that maybe the select board looks at, maybe other boards look at. Maybe funds need to be approved by one of these entities as well. So there needs to be some checks and controls as well as something to think about.
Sure.
Because I don't know what that is.
You talk about like the downtown overlay district. Look at the things that people want in the downtown overlay district that, currently we can't find.
Trash
A
can.
Purpose garbage pickup. I mean, there's a perfect one right there. A day doesn't go by, I don't hear about that, or something like that. That's the point I'm trying to make, is that the town is committed to the vision. The town created a downtown overlay district by, 10 years ago, whatever it was. We're trying to forward that, and we want a specific type of development in there. And I think making it predictable makes it a lot easier to get it if you really do want it, down there, then it gives you the reason and the mechanism to get in there.
I think it
So-
would be
so I
really,
got two other thoughts, and then we can continue to discuss. One, I want to work towards a draft proposal that I will present to the select board. I would like their buy-in on this, and I think that's probably a good idea. And then get their feedback to see what they think. Something, I assume, more voices on this will have a better outcome. Are there any other entities that we should be considering at this time to get feedback from this concept idea?
Cultural council, maybe?
And I don't know if it's now
How
or
about the
maybe
Yeah.
business, how about the businesses,
Business Alliance.
the businesses downtown?
Mhm.
Because I have a problem with this just becoming slush fund for maintenance projects DPW should be doing anyway.
that's what I was gonna say.
There
I
should be
think it
new
would be-
stuff.
It would be really helpful to have Justin in person, be able
At some
to
point.
discuss this with you.
At some point.
Um,
We need some broad details
But the other is, we're talking short money here.
for now.
No, we're talking, we're talking low tens of thousands of dollars, which is nothing on a DPW project.
Which is not, I don't know what, we can look at that too.
Yeah, so for example, we have data from 8 years ago on the entire town on ADA ramps. Which ones are compliant, which ones are not compliant. And looking at the data, we had about like 80% of the ones in the downtown overlay district being non-compliant. However, that's from 8 years ago, and I don't think that's still, I think some of those have been fixed. But what I think we were struggling with, one of the things you asked for was like a priority project list. I guess that's where I would want Justin to speak for himself on what he thinks about that.
For
because he
me,
was concerned.
That's a vision for maybe, a year or two from now, having that set up. I'm not looking for that next week. I'm not looking for that in a month from now. I'm looking at that as a more vision of an outcome
Of what we use. the funds
of what we're doing right now, this discussion.
Okay.
Right? Like getting to that point where we know what our priorities are downtown.
Okay.
Yeah. So Justin probably has his now. And then that might be useful for our next hearing in the DOD. But I'm trying to set this up so that we get into the rhythm of having applicants put resources towards our priorities that we've already predetermined. Through mechanisms that we already had set in place, that we've agreed to collectively or from a consensus point agreed to, with select board and DPW and town admin and everyone else. So I look at it more of a vision.
Okay.
For now.
So moving into, like next phases on this. Is your goal then to have, what would you like, a proposal, for example, what would you like to be in that, if it's not a priority? Just how the funds, who gets chosen and what funds get, what's that price range? Or-
I think we need to start, and this is out of my professional wheelhouse, so I'm pulling in lessons from other things. Maybe some type of concept plan would be helpful, and having kind of a vision for it, a purpose sort of statements. I think that would be a good way, and it could answer some of the things you brought up, like what Bill said. This is not a slush fund for DPW, the maintenance, that's not necessarily the point. So, but what is the point? What is the What's the vision? What's the objective? And what
That
are
sounds
some?
like a great grant project.
Okay.
Get a grant for it.
Okay,
I don't think we have the internal capacity to be able to give a concept plan at this moment. But, you know, I think that's something that like MAPC would like to work on with us. What are your thoughts, Bill, on that?
and so I want, but the point is to improve the downtown, right? That's the goal. And how can we talked about it in this past hearing tonight, right? Like, we were looking at, does this applicant meet the criteria of the special permit? What are the adverse effects? They're definitely adverse effects towards the downtown. You know, so we need to do what we can to help provide more resources to the downtown in an effective way. So
Well,
that's
I mean,
that's
yeah,
what
I
we're
mean, and
talking
it's not saying you have to do this. I mean, if that's the, like, for example, we're talking about this Parker Street development, you know, is it hurting downtown this? Well, if you think it is, then take the fund and we can make some, perhaps some new wayfinding downtown. If you have, it's the top performing market basket in the region, I think now. What the heck? Not everybody's familiar. I think the downtown would benefit a lot from, you know, reaching out to new people coming in. Maybe they don't even know there's a downtown. You know, so if you want to think like that, I'm here for that. This was a suggestion from DPW, that's all.
Yep.
You know, but I don't, you know, these are opportunities. So that's all. You want to make the most.
Let me ask a theoretical. If a sandwich shop, say Jersey Mike's, wanted to go downtown in an existing building, no change to the building had been a restaurant, but for some reason they needed a special permit. Are we thinking that they would have to pay up 15 grand to buy a couple pairs of handicap ramps?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not at the point to answer that question.
I see.
I'm at the point of trying to get a good concept here, and that, to me, that's a detail, but we do waive those things too, though, couldn't we? In this hypothetical?
Not if you put it in here, no. But I think the problem is the criteria for this DOD special permit are not terribly functional. And until you get that criteria figured out and understand your personal definition of significant, then you can't really get a grasp of what kind of expectations you would need to meet that criteria.
I mean, if you're asking me if I'm supporting a complete review and revamp of the criteria, I'm gonna say, yeah. We'll look at anything. I want it to be effective and I want it to be useful and I want it to be designed to improve the downtown. That's the goal. So if our criteria is not designed properly to support the quality development of downtown, yeah, we gotta take a look at it.
Let's redo it.
Are you still in favor of the DOD being an optional overlay?
Not sure.
As opposed to people.
As
As
to whether
not,
what,
as not existing.
as today, it's a mandatory, right?
Well, so you can go with the DOD or you can go with the base zoning.
Yes.
So
What's the most common with an overlay?
What's the most one?
common with an overlay?
When there's an overlay district, what's the most common?
Yes,
preference?
so-
As I understand it, we have a very unique way of using this.
Yes. And
So
I
what's-
think the most common is that you have to go with what the overlay says. So there is no option
And what do we
of
have?
opting out of it.
And what do we have?
You can opt out. You can just go with the base zoning and not pay attention to the overlay.
Okay.
I don't like that.
I've never seen it. I could see how it happened,
I can see how it happened, but the
but
point is,
it's not the right reasons. for it happened, in my opinion.
if we want to improve this downtown, then everybody who is changing something or moving in or doing whatever who needs a special permit. right?
Well, if you're trying, if the goal is to try to improve the pedestrian experience, and you're saying you can opt in with a project that doesn't improve the pedestrian experience, and you have the sea of parking in front or whatever the heck the design is, what's the point?
But my thing is, the criteria says I can just increase the views and access to the river and meet the criteria.
Yeah.
But I could cut down a tree and I meet the criteria.
Well,
if the
except-
board- if
But
the
then you
board
would get
felt,
shut
you know,
down by conservation.
Yeah, that's a bad thing.
Right,
We get-
But
we
yeah,
get this one.
it's, there are competing interests.
But the other issue is the boundaries of the DOD right now are in no way
Correct.
workable with an impact fee.
So I think we talked enough about this concept, right, of a particular possible fund, okay? So let's just think about that some more. All right, see what you guys come up with. We can talk more about it. To me, it's just trying to figure out ways to help the downtown as best we can. Let's move on, let's move on to other items about the DOD, like Bill was saying.
Quickly though, can we use that old fund, that old account, right?
I don't think we want to,
Can
I
we
think
make
we
it-
want to create a new one.
We need a new one to put Olaf's money in, right? So where are we gonna,
Yeah, it came in today.
so we need a place to put it. So can we, in the meantime, can we do that? So that we have a holding place?
I think we could create a fund pretty quick. I just have to, if that's what, yeah, the answer is yes.
If we're not gonna buy bike racks, we need to do something with the money. So I think we
So
should.
yes, currently the
somewhere.
money was going into, what fund?
It was a DPW.
DPW fund. So, but earmarked for downtown uses only. So
I'm-
it's,
Because the
I'm fine
select
with
board
that.
used to have a fund that put all the parking meter money in it every year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
For downtown.
that's right.
So that fund's not there anymore?
It had, something happened with it. It is there, but it's not suitable for this.
So
I
his-
can't remember why.
his money's going to sit temporarily for now.
'Cause that used to, that was the beat fund, if you remember.
The beep, yes. that's what-
Yeah, so it got about $35,000 a year in the parking meter.
Yeah.
The select board will give it to us.
I'm just saying, I think in the meantime, we should find a place to put it. I'm fine, if this project needs to go to DPW, like, that's fine with the earmark for, whatever, that's fine. But again, I think sooner rather than later, we can just make some sort of fund so that we have a place to put these smaller amounts, right? Like the smaller amounts, so that we're not trying to come up with something that costs $100.
Yes, yeah, 100, 200, between $100 and $1,000 where we put that money. Correct.
I think she wants to call it the trash can purchase.
I absolutely do.
Well, that's a great example.
Well,
I don't want us to lose sight of the fact that a $2,000 contribution becomes $10,000. If the $2,000 is used for the match for the state grant.
Yes.
So there's good reason to, if, I assume that our ADA plan was not approved because there must be some deficiency there,
Correct, yeah, and
right? So we're in the hole downtown that's not as accessible as it should be. There's an opportunity that we should consider.
so what would you like for just on, with the funds?
Mhm.
What would you like for like deliverables or moving?
I would say, let's work on a high level concept plan.
Okay.
That we can discuss further here.
Okay.
And get feedback from other entities in town. I can help you. and I can-
Concept on the funds, not concept plans on the downtown.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fund-
Thank you, Jim.
A fund sort of concept plan, and you and I can talk more about it.
Okay, perfect.
And then we can, anyway, so any other thoughts on that? Because I do want to make sure we have time to touch upon other DOD elements. Okay, Bill, you brought up one. We're talking about site boundary or DOD boundaries.
But DOB boundaries, using criteria. And then I think we should also talk about 945, since the original intent has been effectively superseded by inclusionary.
Can you elaborate on that last one?
So 945 is if the developer wants to do residential and wants to reduce the square foot per unit from 1,500 to 800, they have to do two things. One is provide 15% affordable units, and two, provide a open space rec donation. And the open space rec donation is something Bill referenced earlier, and has been quantitatively determined and is fixed. There's a built-in annual increase. But the first one, 15% affordable housing doesn't mean anything anymore, since inclusionary requires 25% of everything now. So what I'm thinking is, providing a reduction from 1,500 square feet to 800 is a big financial bonus to the property owner. And I think the best interest of the town would be if we modified that affordable thing, get some affordable property that is truly affordable. Because right now, the affordable definition is 80% of area median income. So that's like a 2-bedroom apartment, it's $2,500, right? And, that's pretty much market rate standard anyway. So it really doesn't have any meaningful impact. But if we required, if they got that bonus, and we required, say, 2 out of every 5 of their affordable units to get the 60% AMI, and the rent would be $1,900, which is, up there. But, it's better and it helps more people. That would be a meaningful addition for the financial bonus that they get. Right now, they go for the bonus and all they have to do is kick in money for open space. That's the only new thing they have to do.
Maybe we don't need that at all, and we could just we could adjust the inclusionary zoning bylaw to do that.
Well, I would certainly be better, but you always refuse to do that, so let's try and do it here. You refuse to do it twice. You give us 2 opportunities to fix that.
How did
That's
I
how
come
many-
on, Bill? This like-
I'm fine with doing it here.
Huh?
Let's do it here.
Yeah, I would love to do it here and then find it becomes meaningless because we change it everywhere, but I'll take it here for now.
Well, could you change it once and then have the other ones referenced? Like, you say, for example, like 20%.
Well, the other one applies without any financial gain. It's just you build, you have to have affordable.
Yeah,
This is, you build more than allowed, you have to have
yeah,
very affordable.
Yeah.
Is what I'm talking about. So I'm not, I think it definitely belongs here because they're getting something. I'm not 100% sure it belongs everywhere, although I wouldn't mind seeing it financially.
Right, because there's a point where if you make it such that it's fully applicable for all circumstances, it may deter development.
Yeah, everywhere. Yeah, if I was gonna do it everywhere, I might do it like 1 out of every 5.
You would change.
Very affordable.
But the point is that we're not trying to get them to, if they really want to go to this minimum of 800 square feet per unit, then there's a harsher, well, to them, financial penalty, right?
Right,
Well,
the financial
It's a fair
benefit, it's
deal to
being
the
Yeah,
matched.
yes, exactly.
The benefit by the developer is being matched by a better contribution.
I think it's more, they get this much, we get at least this
Okay,
much.
sure,
Yeah,
fair
yeah.
enough. Yeah, my hand's fine. So,
So well, let's look at, I mean, the 60%, having a percentage of the required percentage, 60% is like, I mean, it's.
But I was thinking, none of all the units, it's like 2 out of every 5 affordable units. It's not, a quarter, 40% of the affordables or whatever.
Right, it's a good idea, and it's needed, and there's documentation that's needed. I mean, our housing production plan, we know that that's correct. And if it's an optional density bonus, frankly, why do we care about 800 square feet? I mean, we could probably go down to 600 and be, for downtown.
Well, then I want them all at 60%. Maybe then I want them all at 60%.
Maybe we make something like that. I don't-
Maybe
I
we
don't know.
make something like that and someone takes us up on it, right? And then we have a huge chunk of 60% AMI. That would be amazing.
Okay.
it might be time also to if what Bill said, and he's with the Affordable Housing Trust, and he sees the numbers more than anybody probably here. But the numbers are, affordable housing it's high.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's high. It's not a joke.
Yeah, Phil, you talked about this before, the 80% is just.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
not
when we
reasonable.
talked to when the Affordable Housing Trust talked to the guys doing 2 powder mill.
Yeah.
They're like, $2,500, great. I mean, they were like, psyched.
Yeah, the 1 bedroom.
Yeah, they're like, oh, what do I care about
2,100 affordable.
Right.
I mean, I think it was more than they were thinking of charging. They were like, fine. It's a lot of paperwork, but it's not getting money out of it.
Yeah, so
So those are my 3 big ones there.
can you cover the 3 big ones again? Just
Yeah, the boundaries, because there's a lot of ancillary residential that got caught up in the drawing, and frankly, nobody paid attention to
Let's
that.
take a look at the boundaries in a minute, but what were the other 2?
The other one was the criteria themselves, which
The criteria themselves, and then 9, 4,
the
5.
approval, yeah, 945, and then the approval criteria under 946.
Okay, great.
At least one of the following. Sometimes it's super hard to legitimately find.
We're carving out a lot of scope for us. This is great.
I think you should just change 3E, right? The proposed development will improve the functioning of downtown by at least one of the following means. It says increase views and access to the Assabet River. Just change it to significantly increase views and access to the Assabet River. And then we get to decide what significantly means, right?
Well, that's a good point.
Just saying, I mean,
It is a little weak there.
then they can't cut down one tree and say, look, we improved views.
Yeah, I think that, so I'm constantly in an internal conflict with my planning and my conservation, right? Because those are 2 different ones.
It's a bad example. I mean,
But-
It's
No,
terrible.
no, no, but
it's, I
just
get the
from
point,
the access point of view, for example.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
think
better
strike
example.
through.
riverfront access is one of the most difficult ones to go about. Because, from a planning perspective, yeah, I'd love to see riverfront access improved. From a conservation perspective, I don't really want to disturb some very already disturbed areas that are trying to recover from being disturbed for centuries on the river. So,
This downtown.
yeah, and so it's a constant, you're constantly weighing your risks and benefits, and conservation is as well. But I think that that's where you putting the significant and then defining that amongst yourselves is exactly what a planning board.
And I mean, that's a planning board objective as well. So planning board, master plan objective as well. The master plan in the 2 years that it was prepped, didn't say, oh, we want to leave it the way it is and have a river that we wall off from view or something like this. They wanted to, activate the river as appropriate. And if it's a conservation, then let's have appropriately activated as conservation land, where it's removing invasives or whatever the case is. If you can use it for recreation, but make it an amenity, not just something to wall off. That's why we have the master plan, so it's.
Yeah, all I'm saying is
It
that
is-
there's the added layer of the state mandated
But it all
environmental.
has to be consistent with master plan and the master plan. board.
Yes, and it also has to be consistent with, the state DEP of what they're
Oh,
going to allow.
absolutely.
So that's it, just, for example, with two Paramount, that's been, it's a
And
very interesting case study on getting public access.
the point is well taken, Julia. Any of these sections that we look to rewrite, or any section in general, should have these considerations in place for these other particular potential conflicts.
Mhm.
We don't want to incentivize developers to do something that would go against the criteria for the CONSCOM, for example. That's not the intent.
Yeah.
So we should be thoughtful, of course, about that, 100%. So it's 8:55. We'll spend a few more minutes on this. I do support looking at a rewrite of the DOD special criteria and some type of adjustment of 9.4.5. I don't know the best way to do that. Is that, should we do this in this type of meeting? Should we sidebar and have, what do we call these, special work group or something? I don't know the best mechanism to do.
I think you've given us some things to run with, and I think that the best way to do it would be work in progress. You know, we can say, okay, well, you know, the special permit valuation criteria for the DOD is not the way we want it. Here's, you know, we could write that and get that correct, and, you know, and do the tweaks. I think the biggest thing is, and I again would tell, I would request the board consider, you know, do you want to keep this optional? Because all you need is one person, you know, come in with a project that aesthetically doesn't fit, doesn't follow the dimensional requirements of the downtown overlay, and then.
So we have reasons to not keep it optional. Maybe Bill and Julie, maybe next time, let's discuss reasons. Are there any reasons why it helps?
I
our
have
current
never seen it in
situation?
my career, that I have never seen an optional overlay district. And it's,
I'm trying to be thoughtful about this and not just have a reactionary
So,
opinion, but
Yeah,
is
so
there?
I can try to, we can, you know,
Right.
look at the,
I want a good solid, you know, if this is true, I want a good solid review of what the benefits are and considerations for any downsides to make that determination too.
yeah,
Because I want to be able to present that information so that others can understand why it's important to do this.
Do we have a concrete answer as to why it was created optional to begin with?
I was,
That's what MAPC said.
Really?
it was what?
That's what MAPC said to do. Because they're working with.
It sounds,
really have a
yeah,
clue what
I,
it
when something like that happens, I don't know. I mean, I wasn't there. But typically it's trying to please a lot of people, and maybe somebody didn't. I still got arguments about mixed use until, you know, 4 years ago. Oh, that's not what it meant, mixed use. Of course it meant mixed use. And so I don't know, but at this point, I think we're getting so many good things, and things are, regardless of what, you know, people would think, there's some really good.
so basically a
Design
pro and
from
con.
Well, we have to justify the reason for a change. So we just need to provide a full circle review of and consider if there's any impacts and what those impacts are. And if we do a thorough review and say we don't see any impacts to this, then that's fine. But we do have to review it. Does that make sense?
It does.
So I think I'm happy to talk. We can talk sometime about that concept plan for the fund.
Yep.
And I'd like to prioritize this. We're looking at a DOD special criteria review or a rewrite, and then an adjustment to 945. Do we want to tackle 945 first? I want to do this sequentially.
You could do 945 independent video.
Okay.
If you were trying to shoot for the fall.
Yeah. Let's do it first then. It seems manageable.
945.
Mhm.
That would, if it's just that might be better with a working group.
Yeah, very good.
You know,
Did you want to quickly look at the?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. We do. Pull out-
You know, the other thing that we didn't mention in 945, what's that we should change, in my opinion, is if I was a developer looking at this, I would, it might not, we can make it easier to understand what's expected.
So let's work on 945, and then for our future goals, we'll look at the special permit criteria for the DOD. That'll come, we'll keep that on our itinerary and we'll look at it in the future. But after we complete the 945 review.
And then the map.
And now let's look at the map. Yes.
Do you want The map from town meeting is on there too. Do you want to call it?
This is the area.
Yep, this is the DOD one.
Do we have a
This is-
more
No, that's
detailed
the
one?
zoning map. That's from the regular zoning. I have just DOD map too. but I have- It has, well, try this.
Can you
I'm just not
understand
sure.
where the residential properties are?
Yep,
They're the green ones.
Well, that's a residential zone. The real hard thing is to understand where the residential properties are. Like Riverbank.
so,
What the hell? Why is that in here?
so one thing that, so I would pull up our online GIS, but one thing that I realized today while I was looking was that the downtown overlay district is not actually, the line is not actually visible.
That
Yeah, so it says it's there on the legend, but when you actually go to look, you can't.
If you go to the resources page where we were, there's a map of the downtown overlay district from the 2006 town meeting. And, but yeah, Riverbank's in it, when. Okay. Is it there?
Downtown overlay district.
I can see it.
It's a very subtle green line.
Yeah, it's not.
Oh, yeah, that's better. You can see the houses, you can understand what's what.
Yeah, you can see something.
So that's inconsistent with the
Whoa,
drawing of the zoning.
Correct,
Whoa.
they do not match.
Oh, well,
Why?
that's interesting.
Hey, look at that.
So right now, oops. Oh, of course, I
Look at it
X'd
down the line.
out of it. Give me 1 second.
Oh.
So in our zoning bylaws map published, we have this chunk. So if we just, let's just focus on this. And then we come over here. As you can see this,
What are you looking at? You're looking at done?
yes,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a tad bit different.
because the other one, it captures the two residential next to done. That one has a tongue sticking out. Does Dong it?
On you.
Dong and two
Yeah.
others on Euclid.
So which
What
one,
the hell, man?
which one's the master here then? Which one?
This is
This is,
approved at town meeting, right?
okay.
So this is something that happens, this is a kind of our struggle right now. And so we were like, okay, which one, where did this other one come from? And how did it get in there?
But Bill, officially this is, right? This is the legal one, because this is the one approved at town meeting.
Right, I think that that would be an interesting question because it was also approved as a resolution where the coordinates were called out.
Oh, my God.
And, you know, I'm not sure exactly how they did that, but if it may be that they were, I mean, there could be a mistake on there, those for the coordinates. But I think that if we change the boundaries,
Are there any other discrepancies?
Besides that
there
one,
was,
there's the, oops. Pretty sure over in this corner,
Oh, you gotta look there, it jumps the street there.
and it goes, and then it stops at the bridge, right? I
It
think
goes
it's-
hillside, oh, it does go down the hillside. No, it doesn't.
Mm.
A mess.
Remind me what the light pink is specifically, the words of it,
business,
Business,
business.
darkest CBD.
That's right, right, yeah.
probably
Not that they have businesses on.
and then we
Sorry,
also have a.
so one
Prince
thing I
Avenue.
don't understand is that this business district
yeah,
extends just a little bit farther in many different corners than the downtown overlay district.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't understand. That's confusing.
Why did it stop? Like, why?
It's
Well-
not, so if this business district here, the light pink, if it continued on for another half mile west, I would understand that at some point you cut it off and say, this is what we're considering downtown. But there's just all these little pieces of like 3 properties not being included, all of it.
well, I don't know, yeah, I can't answer that, but I mean, things like that typically happen when there's, you know, frankly, there's a lot of people live.
So you're saying it's negotiation?
So,
Maybe.
I'm saying that MAPC drew it, and they're like, okay.
If you looked at, right now, if you looked at the boundaries for the cultural district, if we pull up That's probably closer to what you'd want, I would think, to the downtown overlay district. There's probably some nooks and crannies. They have their own page. I didn't.
Before we go to that,
Yeah.
can you go back to the official map?
Yes. This,
So let's get very general. This has, it's a triangle mixed with an elongated two side to the left, okay? So like, does this match, generally speaking, what we still think and consider to be downtown?
I think,
Yeah.
I'm not talking about every little property, I'm
Right.
talking, if we were to just take a marker and say this is downtown, does this still align?
I think one important thing of it,
Downtown stuff's in the river.
When you say downtown stuff's at the river, there's a river that crosses the river, crosses a few points.
I had this
You mean
down by the post office. I mean, this part of town that we're sitting in right now is not downtown.
Ooh, I don't know if that's true.
with our restaurants,
I don't know.
we, like with, the new
To me,
restaurants.
it's
that's like-
downtown, it's a triangle. A triangle and.
but
you
do
know,
we,
a
I
butter.
guess, a better question would be, do we want this to be part of our downtown?
Ooh,
Down
yes,
to town hall.
Do you see what I'm getting at now?
yes.
So there's a question about what we consider downtown now, what we want downtown to be, and is this map useful for supporting the downtown development? I do think, when I think downtown, I think triangle, for sure. But I do get why it elongates to the west here. I do get that from a sort of business and downtown experience standpoint.
You get dinner at Cafe of India, do not say that's in downtown Maynard.
I do.
GG's.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I do. Also, if I were to go out with some friends, we may go to the new brewery and also consider that downtown.
Yes,
So I'm just pointing that out.
So the mill is not part time.
The middle is not part of downtown, but that's the downtown experience. So things to consider.
I guess what I'm confused by, and this is maybe a question that no one here has the answer to, is that how did we get the layer that we now have? Where did that come from? That's not this line,
there, yeah, yes.
because I think that's our, like, for us, when projects come in, they're like, oh, we're here, and we have to be like, hold on, let me go check and see if that's correct, based on this map that's hanging up in Bill's office.
We can't print a new map.
Which also doesn't have any of the underlying.
So I don't have this, I don't have this layer, so there's a shape file, and that's the shape file I have, is this one.
Because the big thing is I would like to be able to see this map with the underlying districts. Because there are a lot of weird overlaps that don't make any sense to me. There are a lot of DODs overlapping residential districts in ways that don't make any sense. There, it's like,
If I had to start more fresh, I would have this more of a tiered approach with different guidance on the tiers. Meaning, if you're getting closer to abutting a residential district on a few of these sides, like the north side, or maybe the west tier, I would have a tiered approach to this. Obviously, downtown is the triangle, and maybe more is clearly downtown, and that's exactly what our zoning is designed for. But that's just something I would consider.
well, we do have a couple in the dimensional requirements. If it's abutting a residential lot, not in the DOD, there are a couple things called out, but it is not.
Yeah.
significant.
So, and also, hold on, also, I'm very much on board with I don't know, this inner red, this dark red, and our DOD line
Mhm.
is just very. Do we want alignment on that?
I would also just point out that we do have some weird discrepancies within our zoning line. So we're cutting across parcels. It's not parcel base. So usually, zoning will run along the lines of the parcel. So you can see here, it's cutting. So half of this parcel is in one zone and the other half is in another zone.
Yeah, it was just
It
an
seems-
offset from the whole railway.
That seems
rail
odd.
line.
Can you pull up the cultural district map for a moment, please?
Yes, how do I get?
It's on, cultural district.
Chris, are you saying to make sure all the dark red is in there?
I don't know. I don't.
I think it is. I just, boy, I assume it is.
I guess I don't understand the concept of that
It's not,
darker
Right,
red
so
not being,
No, it's on the district.
being the full DOD line.
Just the dark red?
I don't understand.
Well, then
Well,
you
it's
would,
central
then you would
business.
just modify the CBD regs. If it's gonna be mandatory, right?
is this what you were looking for?
Yeah, just to give them an idea, yeah, this is,
So how is this?
and, yeah, that included the mill, which was essential in this, for this particular. And and we had to get, art space in,
And then this
that's the mill
Bounce.
parking lot.
down to here.
Yeah.
I feel like I might be dominating this conversation, so I want to make sure that, Jim, do you have any thoughts?
No. I think you guys would cover it very well.
Dad?
No, I'm just,
No,
you covered it pretty well.
it's a hard thing.
Yeah.
I had no idea my house is in the cultural district.
You got culture.
See?
I feel
Because
so
it's
close.
because of your yard and your
And I
farm.
think it really brings up a bigger issue that we have on data.
Yeah.
This big disconnect between, number one, the fact that our town meeting is not what's being published in our zoning bylaws.
A problem.
It's pretty crazy. And then so I've never even seen this before. I don't think we have this layer or anything in our shape file.
I think this is great, Bill, because I would take this, I would overlay that with the DOD lines and anything that wasn't on both. I'd get rid of out of the DOT. So the DOD should be current line overlaid on this and whatever is both.
So why don't I try
The
working
DOD would be a little
on that?
tighter.
It seems there's some background work that needs to be done before we can, before the planning board should really get engaged with this, right?
Yeah, and so that's,
Yeah, but with Bill's thoughts in mind, for sure.
I think I can get all the right data up into a map that you can then turn things on and off to be able, because that's the hard part right now is now we're looking at 3 stiff papers and trying to remember what. That's why overlays exist. So I will work on making the old zoning downtown overlay district lines. And then I'll get the cultural district lines as well.
So
Maybe
if
that
if
speaks
you
in somewhere.
needed more leverage to work on database stuff, the planning board needs this, right?
Yes.
Okay. Julia wants to update our data sets.
Well, so, and I'm working on,
We can't make decisions because we just don't have the correct data.
so, and one of our goals potentially for the summer is to get a GIS turned out, with some of the stuff, because it's pretty labor intensive, but these things, I'm gonna do some digging and try to figure out and talk with, I want to know, it opens up this bigger question, why, so what happened from 2018 to 2007? Why did this get extended over? That doesn't just happen, that's not a mistake that can happen. So what happened and how do we prevent that moving forward? Who has control of our data?
I just think before we decide to make these overlay districts a required overlay,
Yeah, we need to know.
we need to know what properties we're talking about, because there are a lot of them that are in residential areas, and if you're gonna tell them suddenly they have to create multifamily, whatever, that's not appropriate.
And they have to buy a couple sidewalks.
Yes, exactly.
Every time they put on a porch.
So you would also like to see maybe something that's a layer that also called out land use, not zoning. So
Yeah.
like residential business,
Yes.
and what's
Yes,
actually.
but I'd
going
also
on.
like to see the zoning, even though I know it cuts across.
Yeah, we
lots
already
of
have
things.
that, so that's easy.
Right, but we don't have it overlaid with
No.
the proper
Correct.
DOD map.
Land,
I'll-
land use, yes.
I'll bring in land use as well.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if I can get that done by the next meeting, but
No, that's not,
No,
that's not what we're doing here. The point is to, again, we're trying to,
I'll show you what I got by the next meeting.
like, my
We could just
goal,
bring this up again.
Yeah.
my goal, like a year from now, the things we're talking about, we're able to implement the majority of them in the next year or so,
Yeah,
Right.
and that's,
like in a functional way.
I have so many questions. And I don't think anyone really knows the answer on these things, because the people who were controlling this are no longer around, so.
Any final thoughts on this?
Yeah, the mistakes were the fault of the last intern.
Totally agree.
The last intern?
oh. Oh, that's
The one in 2010.
the graduate.
And no, we're not gonna talk about this. All right, planning updates. Julia, Bill, do you have any updates for us?
Town meeting.
Oh, yeah.
We have town meeting.
Over?
Chris is required to be there as chair, but members, your participation is encouraged but not required. I encourage you to come as just a town resident, to come vote on some important things that are coming up. None of them really planning related necessarily, but the easement on 129 Parker. It's the last thing on the docket, so I encourage you to stick around so we get that through. 115 Main is going to go in front of conservation this week and hopefully be demolished by the end of June.
When you say demolished, you're referring to the building now?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
So we're taking a different approach and splitting the permits up to demolition is one and new building is another. So we
At
can
least we'll get them on the hook for demolishing it.
start to get the ball rolling there.
Reduces their taxes.
And
Sorry, keep going.
what are our other 2-4 Powder Mill is we're still working on that project
Just working on, we're meeting on
tomorrow
tomorrow, Thursday. I can't remember.
We have a meeting tomorrow, Bob, right?
afternoon.
3 o'clock.
We have Bob and I are working on that development agreement and I forget the high level principles that we agreed to. That would be important. Do you remember?
So housing is going to be in there.
Yeah. We have a draft for it.
It's been reworked and
I like that. That's all I remember is that I liked it.
So one caution I had from the conversation when they went to the housing trust. They seemed to think that once the development agreement was figured out, that was pretty much it for them as far as permitting
no.
changes and hurdles.
So
Wow,
There-
that's quite a thought.
Yeah, so I would just want to make sure that they understand there's other things that.
he's a
need to be
newer
done.
developer. So, a lot of this stuff is in the process is newer to him. But we'll definitely
It's in there
reiterate.
now. It's clear. It says this is nothing to do with permitting from other entities that are required as part of the process.
Yeah,
This is only saying that in this case, the maximum number of units and whatever. But no, you're right, Bill, and that's, I think it's crystal clear already. in the draft.
It makes you feel better. I did try to reiterate it at least a few times, Bob, if I recall, that there's certain things that will have to go in front of the board for discussion, particularly the planning board for approval that we can't put in the development agreement. So you're gonna have to come to talk to us.
Yep.
The one thing that I said that we were probably, and the way I put it was, in the past, we've approved waivers and variances for parking. So we'll just leave it at that, they have lots of concerns about parking, but I said we've been lenient on parking in the past. Doesn't mean we're going to be here, but that's just from history. But yeah, I agree. They wanted to put a lot more into the development agreement. But that was clearly needed to go in front of boards. So I don't think that's happening. That's not happening at all.
No, but even the basic site description of the project, number of units and how big commercial is, all that, I mean, that has nothing to do with the development agreement.
The number of units should not, except that they can agree to it. Right? The development agreement can probably include it, but it doesn't mean that he's going to receive permits based on
Yeah,
those
okay, all
numbers.
right, I mean, as long as
Yeah.
there's way more work to do than that, that's like a nothing
Because,
effort.
and there, I mean, we haven't even seen, we don't have site plans, we don't have internal
Yeah.
floor plans, there's a lot missing, so, there's a lot that.
But the thing is to set up the sequence, if the purpose is to, in this case, you want to set the maximum, for example, or whatever the expectations are of the parties to the development agreement, and then go from there and just set it up with a maximum and set the boundaries and the basics of it. It's a complicated project, it's going to be a complicated development agreement, it'll be a complicated permitting process, but it's doable. And just see, but I think that with the development agreement, the approach in there now is not to put stuff in there that doesn't need to be in there. The specific things, like we said, the number of units, maximum, and the dedication, the expectations, and have that. So we're just looking at the nuts and bolts of it when it comes to us and Conservation Commission and whoever the heck else is going to end up doing.
I'm just trying to avoid a planning board where, you say 10 units and they're like, the development agreement says 12. It's like, they are rookies, so
Yeah,
it needs to be.
I
clear.
don't recall if we'll bring it back tomorrow to our meeting, but I don't recall the draft development. To be honest, I haven't reviewed the draft development agreement yet. So maybe I should.
And there
start
should be a new one, potentially, we were reworking it again today, so.
Does it include
I
a
think we'll-
specific number of units? as
At,
you recall?
at this point, it does, that's another conversation that we wanted to have was, number of units versus, well, on the affordable side, number of units versus percentage of units.
I took it more as these are the number of units that meet the general criteria of the zoning bylaws. Not that it was an agreed to number of units, but that these, this could work. So we'll have to talk more about it.
Yeah, tomorrow, I
But
think.
language like that doesn't really belong in a development agreement that is a deed rider. That's after the fact. Kind of weird.
Yeah, I'm struggling with it too.
Is it a by right number?
I'm struggling with it. It's a good point though.
For what? What is it?
We'll talk about it more tomorrow during the development, during our working group.
945 requires a development agreement, and where you do it, and it's required.
No, it's a valid point, Bill Crenshaw. And other planning updates?
Not me.
You have an MEPC magic meeting coming up, Bill?
We have a legislative breakfast, which everybody's invited to, you have to register. It is 10th. It's going to be at the sanctuary, which is kind of nice. I'm hoping that the local businesses take advantage of having, an influx of people coming downtown for this event, and it's going to be the legislative bodies, coming in, representatives from all the Magic area, which is 13 surrounding towns, and whoever comes around. So
When
it's
is it?
Magic. Magic is a local subgroup of the MAPC.
Yeah.
And that's us. And every year there's legislative practice where all the legislators from all the MAC communities,
And it's here.
and this year's going to be here.
Great.
It's going to be at Sanctuary,
Nice.
and you're all can come, just register by May 31st.
Okay.
That's pretty interesting, but it's a nice thing for the town. I hope that I set stuff around that people understand that it's a cool thing for us. So
Who's catering?
MAPC's covering this one. Maybe I have to try to local. So,
You'll get nailed.
Last thing, Bill, Natalie's on one of the joint committees that she's been on for a while. Which one's that?
well, there's a requirement.
Ukrainian soldiers inspected the wreckage of
Yes, just totally.
That's your stuff, so you're working on,
Are you talking about the community preservation committee?
Is that it? Is that the
Yes.
one? And I remember like a few months ago, you were saying how much work it is. Is that something you want to continue?
I really like being on it. My plan was after this funding cycle to bow out, but I don't know. I gotta talk to Bill.
See, this Bill's on it currently, but as he can't,
Yeah, no, he can't do.
Jim was on it for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And is it required that a board member is on it?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. It's not really a lot of work. It's only a lot of work. when it's a
Bob
lot
would
of
love
work.
it.
Bob would love
He
it.
would, actually.
oh no,
No,
run away.
Oh, boy.
I really,
It would make his Wednesday night. Oh, man.
every other Wednesday and not so much during the summer.
So you want to continue on with it or
Pretty much.
you want to think about it? some
I'm
more?
gonna think about it.
Okay, you're coming up for renewal, right?
I don't know. How long is the thing? Is it just a year?
It's a 1 year, Jim, wasn't it?
I don't know. Okay. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, think about it some more.
I
Yeah.
think-
If it's, if you've served its time, that's fine. Let us know and we'll talk about it.
But we got to have a live one on it.
I'm alive. That's
That's all right.
That's right now.
Yeah. No, it's very interesting. I think that everyone should do it at least, because it gives you a new perspective into how insane our town is.
How what?
Insane our town is.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, no, you're not up.
No, not this time. I know I'm not up, but I could leave. I've served my time, so if I
Ah,
wanted
I see.
to, yes.
Anything else? I think I thank you for your time tonight on the DOD discussion. I think it's going to be immensely useful. I think we got a good plan. Jim, would you like to do the honors?
I'd be glad to. I would make a motion to close the meeting.
Thanks, Jim. Else?
I'll second that.
All in favor? 5-0 to close the meeting.
Done deal.